should we start with Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chao, who joins us, former team doctor for the Chargers, now a contributor with Outkick as well. Dr. Chao, good to speak with you. Thank you for the time. Hope all is well. Chad and I have been discussing the medical issue and exactly what happened with the cardiac arrest last night with Damar Hamlin. What did you see in real time from what we were all able to see while watching Monday Night Football?
Well, let me tell you, I joined on and heard some of your stuff, and your commentary is already right on. You got a doctor right there next to you, Chad. I mean,
Yeah.
he's done a pretty good job there. Now, here's the thing. When that happened, that was horrific looking, right? When the tackle happened at first, I was like, yeah, it's kind of routine tackle. And then you see he's down. I said, gee, what happened? Did I miss it? Did he hit his head? What happened? And they showed the replay of him standing up and then falling down. And I was like, that's clearly cardiac. And at the time, I had no idea all the CPR, but when all the thing came up about CPR and all this other stuff, it was very, very scary. It was not fun. It was not comfortable. And so I just wanted to provide some people some things, some background information. And you're right. If you're going to collapse, unless you're in a hospital or in an emergency room, there's no better place than an NFL field. It's witnessed. People are there to help you immediately. There are up to 24 medical professionals between both sidelines in a coordinated effort. You meet pregame to talk about it. The Bengals did a great job because they're responsible for the home field care. They drill for this in the preseason. You know, there's someone, emergency doctor who's in charge. There's someone starts CPR. Someone gets the spine board for compressions. You start the IV, the medications, the oxygen. Everyone has a task. And I can't speak more highly than the great job that they did. And as scary as it looked, I'm not trying to speculate on the injury of the young man or the whole deal, but, you know, just to give people some hope and some background and some framework of the incident, I'm actually relatively, fingers crossed, keep the prayers coming, optimistic that we hopefully will have a happy outcome.
Is that just based on the small updates that we've already received at this portion of the time that's elapsed since he collapsed? And what is the medical term for what happened in real time and the hit that caused this?
Well, I don't want to get too much into speculation, but certainly the hit made sense. And most likely it was related to something called a cardiac contusion and a portion of what's called commotio cordis. Now, I'm not a cardiologist, but as a head team physician, I talked to our primary care guys and so forth. Then I talked to Dr. Grau, who's head of Ottawa Heart Institute, about it as well. Commotio cordis is very rare. It's like a very unlucky hit to the wrong spot of the chest at the exact millisecond of I won't get into the EKG wave that sets it awry and causes the heart attack. The heart not to stop moving, but to stop beating in a way that can deliver blood. It's just fibrillating. It's not doing anything meaningful. And you need to do immediate CPR and the AED devices. Look, teams travel with the AED devices wherever they go. I mean, when we went, there was someone assigned to bring it on the airplane and on the buses. Okay, and so each sideline has one. And you know, the defibrillator and the quick action probably saved this young man's life between the Bengals and the Bills, and it's kudos to them. And look, I've come on the show and talked about it with you. It's a hard job, and the NFL sometimes wrongly and sometimes rightfully gets criticized for concussion protocol issues. But I think anyone who's criticized the NFL for concussion protocols should give kudos here to the way this emergency action plan worked out and what they did and how quickly and smoothly it really went. A horrifying situation, making the best of it. I'm hoping, expecting for good news, partly because I'm always an optimist, partly because I want to deliver good news, partly maybe because I want to speak good things into existence. But from a medical perspective, I was putting together for Outkick last night And we do provide some updates at Sports Injury Central. No one's trying to get clicks here. We're just trying to provide some support from people that are hurting and very fearful. The reasons for some potential optimism. The medical staff got there so quickly, all the things that were there, but also one sign that I hope I wasn't reading too much into is the ambulance stopped in the tunnel and waited for mom, apparently. You don't do that if you're continuing chest compressions. You don't do that if the patient is unstable. And it was great to hear from the Bills. And then, of course, everyone got worried because there was, quote, no update coming. And I said on Twitter, and it had nothing to do with the football game, I said, I hope to God that they actually restart and play this game, because I knew there was no possible way they could restart or finish this game without knowing Damar Hamlin was okay. That wasn't happening. So if they restarted the game, that would be just, that's like the thumbs up when you're going off on the spine board, right? If that happens, maybe you can restart the game. But so I was rooting for a restart of the game for that reason, meaning that they knew good news behind the scenes. And when it didn't happen, it was very worrisome. But when the Bills tweeted out cardiac arrest, which is kind of what we thought, and his heart was restarted on the field, that gives me really good hope. Look, he's not out of the woods. He's still critical. The breathing tube, to me, is neutral. It's not bad news. That's what you do when you're in the ICU. You control their breathing, okay? And because they got to him quickly, God forbid, I really hope and expect that there's no brain damage, right? Because they got to him really quick. And this commotio cordis is indeed deadly. Outkick listeners should not Google it. It's deadly because when it happens in an open field, or when you get struck by a soccer ball or a lacrosse ball or kicked in, unluckily, there aren't dozens of medical personnel around in an AED. I'm a huge advocate for having athletic trainers at all sporting events, high school and otherwise, with any chance of contact. A physician if possible, but definitely an AED, and not locked up in the school nurse's office. I mean, on the sideline, on the field, accessible. And that's why you see it in airports and other things. Those are things that can help make a difference there. And it really meant a lot to me to see that Buffalo Bills tweet. I hope I'm not reading too much into it, and I'm not trying to speculate. I'm just trying to spread some hope and optimism in a tough situation.
This is terrific analysis, and exactly why we asked Dr. David Chao to join us here on Outkick 360. And Doctor, I'm not asking you to speculate on this, but we heard it from Damar Hamlin's family, thanking those first responders, thanking those medical professionals out there. I'm watching this. I'm a layman. I didn't go to medical school. I don't work in these high-pressure situations where you're out there trying to save a life, and I'm thinking that has got to be so difficult to keep your composure and do exactly what you need to do and do it quickly in a situation like that. You're a team doctor.
Well,
you had this job. What is the protocol when you run out onto the field and you see immediately that someone has suffered cardiac arrest, and how quickly does everything need to happen, not just with the team physician, but all support personnel around them?
Oh, you give the signal, you start CPR, it happens very, very quickly. And that's the whole point of it. And look, I don't know, I'm sure you guys didn't see it. When I went on Twitter live last night a little bit, I felt like I needed to, because if this upset me this much, I mean, how much is upsetting the regular viewer? And I wanted to provide some comfort and some background. And, in some ways, it's almost easier if you have a job to do. It's harder when you're watching. I didn't like it at all watching. And we've had one time, we never had this happen in my entire career, but there was a chain gang member, an older gentleman, who collapsed on the sideline of a game. And we started some CPR type things. And I didn't get emotional because it's like, you got a job to do, right? And thankfully he was fine too. But here, when you're just watching, you think about your kids and whatever, and the extended football family. It's very emotional. But let me tell you that it happens instantaneously, and it happens multifaceted. This is why you drill for it in the preseason. You meet about it, meet everyone ahead of time. Literally, one person is starting CPR, one person is signaling for the other team. The other team was already halfway out there. I saw the head athletic trainer who's did a great job there for the Bengals as the home and host team already out there. And then here comes the paramedics. Here comes the emergency doctor onto the field. Here comes the medicine bag and cart, the IV supplies, the oxygen mask, the spine backboard, someone starting the IV. It literally is, it's complicated. I mean, it's like diagramming an NFL play. Everyone has a job to do and to do it immediately. And they really did it seamlessly. So, and honestly, I really think they saved their life. And I'm glad that, that so far, fingers crossed, that we're in a good spot right now. We need to continue to get into even a better spot related to the breathing tube, but that's probably, quote, routine for someone who's in the ICU. And hopefully we'll see that removed later today or more likely tomorrow morning, and continue to hear the trickle of good news. And I hope that's what happens. But in the meantime, I don't want to speculate on the specifics, but there are precedences. I mean, Christian Eriksen, the Swedish soccer player, earlier this year had a sudden cardiac arrest and the defibrillator saved him. That was a different situation. He didn't suffer a blow to the chest. And a lot of people opined he'd never play again. And for Outkick, I wrote, well, if he has an ablation procedure, this, that, the other, he could play again. There's possibilities. And he's back playing, thankfully, and healthy. And Christian, I think his name is Christian Pronger, a hockey
Chris
player
Pronger,
in 1979. Chris Pronger, thank you, Chris Pronger. He tweeted out that, was it 1979? He had this commotio cordis, was out for weeks and, dropped on the ice. 1998. Okay, thank you. But he went on to a 12-year hockey career after that. So I'm not trying. No one's worried about football right now for this gentleman. No one's worried about the playoff scenarios and when you're going to make up this game. I get all that, but I'm just trying to provide some overall picture hope here. The most critical time on field was handled brilliantly, and we'll see what happens. And by the way, I did see a lot of people and friends and family asked me, and a lot of people on social media said, what took so long with the ambulance? Why the 9 minutes of CPR? Why didn't you load him and go and sirens blaring? That's just not how it's done. It's safer on the field with dozens of medical personnel and equipment than it is in the back of a moving ambulance with 2, maybe 3 people in the back, okay? And rule of thumb is you never transport someone unless you can stabilize them. Now, if you had no way to stabilize them, then get them in the ambulance and let's go, right? As fast as you can. But they had ways to stabilize them, and they did stabilize them. And so it made sense to do the CPR there and then load him when he was stable in the ambulance. And I thought last night it was a great, great sign about it waiting in the tunnel for mom. Because if you're actually doing CPR and you're unstable, you're not waiting for mom.
Dr. David Chao has been our guest. Great perspective, Doc. We appreciate you. He's Pro Football Doc on socials. Great website there and great contribution to Outkick.com. As news progresses, if we learn more, we will be reaching out again. So we appreciate the time.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys at Outkick reaching out, and I appreciate, quote, our fearless leader, Clay Travis, because here's the thing. There was a time last night where I was like, I don't want to say anything. I'm not a cardiologist. I'm just an orthopedist. But then I thought, you know what? If we're doing injury analysis, no one else can say this stuff. And look, don't worry about the fear. I mean, I didn't want to upset people by saying stuff, but there's ways to jump in a classy way, and I hope that we did it. And I have to thank you guys and Clay for teach a little fearless and just do the right thing and let it sort out. And hopefully we're doing that here.
Yeah, that's why we wanted you on to lead the show today.
I feel better and more informed now, so we appreciate your analysis.
We'll be chatting later this week for sure. Thank you, man.